Welcome to the Twist News. I'm Erika Grey.
And I'm Don Pravda. And good evening and welcome.
Tonight we're going to talk about AI, because AI is absolutely changing the world as we know it. And one of the things that it's changing is how people conduct business, such as acting. Don, would you like to talk a little bit about that? Because you're part of the Actors Guild.
I'd like to tell you, in case you've been walking by Midtown Manhattan or possibly in Los Angeles, you might see actors who are striking. The Screen Actors Guild, Writers Guild, all over the world are on strike, which means there are no productions currently filming. They're not even rehearsing scripts. So all of show business is come to a halt. What is the main issue, though, or a key issue besides wages and residuals and reruns? It is AI. Certain amount of fear that a person like myself in the Screen Actors Guild could be cut out and they could just use a computer image or use my body and tack on a computerized head. That's very romantic, isn't it? Computer changing my head. Okay. But that is actually a worry for the Screen Actors Guild, a vital concern. And for the background actors, in fact, they could just become computerized, or some kind of digital format will replace them. So a lot of worry and concern. The strike is not settled. Rumors are it will continue to be a long one, and we've been out since right after July 4th. So AI, a vital part of show business, and we are striking, Erika.
But do you think it's going to really accomplish anything, Don? You know what's happening in AI. AI is taking over everything. As a matter of fact, it's even changing journalism. And I had shared with you that now what's available to us as journalists is there's a particular news rag out of the European Union that's offering through AI where you can tap into policy literally by just typing in a keyword at the click of a mouse. You can find out who the thought leaders are, who the trending politicians are. You can pull up documents. Never before, Don, has information been at our fingertips like this. So it's changing journalism. It's changing television, as you're talking about. But Don, if they can recreate a background character in AI or create a character in AI, there may come a time when they're not even going to need real actors and actresses.
Well, that is a very valid point, and that's what the striking unions are all about at this time. And I understand that AI could reconfigure the store shelves in supermarkets. They can provide a different layout and something that would be more profitable for the owners of the supermarket chains. And what does it also mean? It means that those clerks that you see around all over a supermarket, they may be replaced by AI.
Yes. Well, the other thing, too, is that AI is changing YouTube. Before, you would have somebody managing your network. Now, there are AI programs, ChatGPT, which can write articles. It can write YouTube scripts. This is unbelievable. It can write articles for journalists.
Perhaps the inauguration speech for the next president of the United States. There is something that we were in Paris together. We went to a lecture. A particular gentleman on stage indicated that thoughts can be placed into your mind. If you're in the car, if you're at a store, if you're at home, that's kind of far out, and it is strange.
Now, Don, that's Mark of the Beast stuff. And actually, that happens to be in one of my books, but we don't go there on this channel, which was exactly what I stated, that this dictatorship a dictator will have the potential to put his thoughts inside of you. And here we go to, and that sounded crazy. Maybe that sounded crazy to you. Well, then we go to that event in Paris with that individual who's right at the top of that industry and that tech field, talking about how they can put thoughts into you. Do you want to explain more of what he said?
Well, he felt that this could change an election, this can change a business, an industry, and they also will be, as we just indicated, writing speeches through AI and totally revamping corporations if necessary. I mean, it's wild stuff. It's almost like out of one of these sci-fi movies that we used to see, like a War of the Worlds, something like
One
that.
thing I do want to say, though, I did test out the chat GPT, and the articles are very bland. So one thing I do want to say is I think the AI there is inferior. But it may be inferior now where a journalist still is really going to come out with much more information, even with the AI that's available for YouTube as well. You really still need the YouTuber directing the channel, directing the content, maybe taking some of the tips. But if you leave it up to AI, you're really getting something generic and kind of bland. I mean, that's what I have found. But having said that, Don, that doesn't mean that that day isn't coming when it's going to have a wealth of information. For instance, if it were to take all of my books on eschatology, on biblical eschatology, it would then have that information that I painstakingly researched over time. And if you then start taking different experts and authors' libraries, and they were to access copyright permission for that, now that AI could become something substantial. So I do want to say that as much as we're talking about how frightening it is, I have found that those articles are bland and generic. And even if they can write a YouTube show, it still tends to have that blandness to it because they don't have the access to the copyright. But who knows if there might not come a time, just like all the musicians, famous musicians are selling their music libraries to earn money. Who knows if there won't come a time when I won't be selling my library of books and painstaking research in order to earn, because that's now the type of earning environment that we're now in. Then AI will have that information. But do you think this is going to get resolved with the actors union? Do you really think that AI is going to pay attention to that?
There has
AI
to be
or the people that manage it?
There'll have to be some contracts. It's hard to say to what degree that this will be defined for the actors and in the scripts. That's going to play out over a period of time, but there will be some language that will concentrate on a for the actors rather than against the actors, for the writers rather than against them. And the writers are going to have to be selective, we might say. They could bend to AI, or the production people may want it, the writers do not, the actors do not. So therefore, what do I believe? I think there'll be a compromise.
Well, I think that what they should do is what the musicians are doing, which is if they sell their voice, let's just quickly, they should get a decent amount of money for that, or they should get some kind of a payout every time that is accessed. That's what the actors should get. In other words, something that would benefit them for providing, because AI is still going to need, just like it doesn't, its articles are bland. It's not going to have that pool. But having said that, I have a producer that I use for my audiobooks. And shockingly, Google now has, at the click of a mouse, you can create an audiobook with any narrator. The narrators sound phenomenal. They don't sound robotic, and they have different voices and different pitches. And
Right.
so this is also frightening, Don, because even in voiceover work, there's going to come a time when, again, the actor's voice isn't going to be needed.
And that will be a sad day, because what is acting all about? It's about voice and speech and, of course, expressions. But voice and speech used to be a very big part of an actor's training. And if that goes, then that will be a very depressing time for my unions.
It would almost be like the survival of the fittest during, did I just say that right? I forgot that here because it's getting late. It's 10 o'clock. My brain turns to mush.
Okay?
It's where if you think that the actor's career is difficult now, can you imagine what it'll be like? It's truly going to be that there's going to be an even smaller amount who succeed because the others will be replaced. But my feeling is, again, based on my experience, that they're still going to need you. You can't replicate all of the different types of voices, and you can't replicate somebody who builds a following, an actor or an actress who builds a following. That's why their voices become sought after, I would think. Is that why? If somebody likes, let's say, give me an actor, Don, who's...
Well, James Earl Jones.
Okay, James Earl Jones. His voice we've heard in voiceovers, but that voice is recognizable. Is that why he's making it in voiceovers?
Yes, a very famous voice.
Look up.
One like Morgan Freeman, another famous voice.
Look up.
The late Eli Wallach, another very famous voice. And they did very well in the world of commercials for years.
So there's still going to be, so what you're saying is there's still going to be that need for people to recognize.
Yes.
So there's still going to be some kind of a human element.
Yes.
So then maybe what we're going to see is a future of people or actors, once this is decided, selling their voices, selling their images, but not selling it for nothing. Not letting Google determine, just like they killed journalism, and they determined how much they were going to earn pay per click, which killed journalists and newspapers. They should not be there to decide what an actor is going to get paid or an actress is, and that's where the actors union needs to hold firm. There's still going to need to be some kind of a human element that AI can replicate.
I might suggest it might be difficult to replicate Fran Drescher's voice from the star of The Nanny and the current president of the Screen Actors Guild. And she's out there working very hard for her union. I like to hear her voice from a machine. It's a very distinct, well-known voice with a New York accent.
They can double a person's image. It's frightening, some of the things that AI can do. AI can replicate the voice, but again, a person can then have rights over their voice so that if there's a show that their voice shows up in, I mean, it'll kind of be like a form of copyright infringement if AI copies you. But AI is looking, Don, to revolutionize everything from world trade, simplifying world trade.
Question mark, it is asked, can AI wage war? Can they break into security? Or are nations at risk from certain people who have thoughts about maybe destroying a nation or a city or a culture?
Well, the European Union now, too, is looking at AI to create transparency in their government for the citizens. So this should be interesting how AI is going to provide that transparency, probably because AI knows everything. Let's talk about how AI knows everything. AI knows what you're shopping for. It knows who you talk on the phone with. And it'll show even who you're talking on the phone with, various images, if it thinks that that person may buy for that family member or for that person. It's really frightening. It throws us articles. AI on YouTube shows us what it thinks we want to watch, although I have to say it's not always, again, very good. There's a lot of times YouTube throws things and they get it wrong. So I do want to emphasize that AI is not foolproof.
Oh, of course not.
Not at this point.
Or when would it ever be foolproof?
It'll be foolproof when they achieve G6 and quantum computing. That's a major leap. Major leap. Like, that's going to go into the stratosphere of information. The superimposition of quantum computing, being in several places at the same time, gathering information so fast. That's when this thing is going to be really, really frightening. But again, there's going to be the issues of people's personal property rights, the rights to their image. And I think that right now the Actors Guild is very smart in fighting, because if they don't fight, Google's going to name a price like it did to journalists, killed journalism, although now that's changing again, killed journalism because they determined the views. And I remember talking to an individual many years ago, well, now it's many years ago, but probably a decade ago, who had worked for CNN, Al Jazeera, was an editor, how he earned only $50 on a major article that he wrote because that's all Google paid. Google essentially murdered journalism, murdered the ability for journalists to earn. So I think it's a good thing that the Actors Union is not letting Google murder their ability to earn so that Google can profit and make all of this money off the backs of journalists, actors, actresses, and anybody else that it can take advantage of. So there is an element of AI, if it is going to achieve that next level, is responsible to pay a decent amount for what it is they're taking. Instead of being, what happens is they've run amok. They make the decisions, they determine, nobody stopped them. But that's all changing.
As it should.
Yes. Well, anyway, that's been it for this episode of the Twist News. Stay tuned for more. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. Check out our Amazon store. Please like this video. Share this video. Share it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Please do all the shares. Help us out here. Give us a thumbs up. And more than that, please again, subscribe to this channel and stay tuned for more.